Hello, everyone, and welcome to everybody to this third Industry Connect webinar series for the summer internship program powered by Comedkares. So, before we begin, as IDEO says, if a picture is worth of 1,000 words, then a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. And for all those people, IDEO is a design firm that was started in 1991, and that's where the culture of design thinking was started, and that's what we're all following it out here today in this webinar and also across all industries. So, for our webinar today on how to build physical prototypes, we have our speaker for the day, that is Mr. Neeraj who is the founder at Neeraj. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to give a quick introduction to Neeraj about Neeraj today. So Neeraj, completing his mechanical engineering from the esteemed RV College of Engineering, started his career in by working at different organizations like GE Healthcare, uh, as in at OMLP, Hindustan Unilever Limited, and Andromeda Maritime Solutions. And in 2021, he started his own startup, that is Mucron Technologies Private Limited, which is today supported by FITT, IHFC, IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, IISc Bangalore, Dobby Foundation Bangalore, and STPI Bangalore. So in this short duration, the startup has also been recognized at the CII conference InnoVerge as YI Apollo Innovation Showcase, and also has been recognized by KDEM, that's Karnataka Digital Economy, as one of the most innovative startup of the region. So, Neeraj, it's such a great pleasure to have you here join us today. So over to you, Neeraj. Looking forward to listening more from you.
Well, thank you, Hiteshi, for this small introduction, and thank you actually for the entire Comedkares team as well for actually inviting me for this webinar. And just before I begin my webinar, actually just today, I was reading a book called as Forms of Endearment. And as Hiteshi mentioned about IDEO, actually IDEO is one of the best companies to work at, not only a design firm, but it's a firm that is actually inculcates a lot of culture, and that's the reason it is one of the firms of endearment, as it is put, or FOE as it is put. So just I wanted to kind of relate that to what I was reading in the morning today. So thank you very much, Hiteshi, for this short introduction about myself, and thank you for inviting me. And I wish Inunity and Comedkares a very best of luck. I think this is a fantastic initiative because I, being a mechanical engineer myself, I think I can relate to a lot of things that most of the engineers today are attending this webinar, from a pain point of view, basically. So I'll just quickly share my screen, and I'd like to get into straight away, I'd like to get into the webinar, basically. So a very pleasant noon to one and all. As Hiteshi mentioned, my name is Neeraj Bagi, and I'm here to take a webinar on how to build physical prototypes. Now, I do understand this is a pre-lunch session, and I'm quite certain most of the people are already feeling kind of peckish. But I just request that for to everyone who is listening to this webinar to kindly concentrate, put in everything of your concentration on this next 45 minutes to 1 hour of this presentation of this webinar that I intend to actually deliver. So as I think the background actually Hitesh is already kind of given. This is just a brief about what I'm currently doing. And right now I'm working as the founder and CEO of a startup named Mucron Technologies Private Limited. We are a Belgavi based early stage startup, and we are working in the field of MEMS and microfluidics. Now, just to give a context slide as to what all will be covered in this presentation, we'll begin with the why, as in why do we actually build prototypes or products, then a small problem solution equation, followed by product development cycle and physical prototypes. Then we'll actually kind of take a break for about, I think 5, 10, 15 minutes uh, with interval one. And then we'll follow up with the modeling in 2D and 3D, process of physical prototyping, design thinking, testing prototypes, and then another interval. Followed by that, actually, we'll get into a lot of deep dive. We'll take a deep dive into the case study of my own startup, how we actually kind of applied all these processes to our startup itself. I'd like to kind of keep it as brief as possible, as fast as possible, because I just want to make sure that I answer a lot of questions in the Q&A section. So please feel to actually kind of have any, just type in any question that you have in the Q&A bar so that I can actually take it up at the end of this webinar. Now coming to the why. So the first question that everyone needs to ask is, why do we need to build prototypes? And I think the simple answer to this is, we'll have to actually come up with market-ready products. And before we actually come up with that, we'll have to build prototypes. I think that's a fair enough answer. But then again, we need to understand, why do people or companies actually build products, basically, be that physical or digital for that matter. And then, that is why, forgive me, so we need to understand, why do people and companies build prototypes or products for that matter. And I believe there are three reasons to this. So the product actually is built to solve a customer's problem. Okay. That is the first issue, first thing that you need to understand. Second is, it has to have a societal impact to the society. And the third, of course, is to have an economic benefit out of it. So these are the three reasons why people or companies actually build products, forgive me. And I think the images on the right are illustrations with respect to the best product that are out in the market today. I'll just explain the first one, that is in the 19th or early 19th or early 20th century, people used to have, the people used to actually go on horses and carts to travel. And now we'll have to actually kind of give a lot of credit to Mr. Henry Ford, who was the first one to actually revolutionize this entire industry and bring in the automobile. Today, automobile is not just a tangible product. It is more than a tangible product. It's an expression of freedom. And that is how actually products, physical products, which are tangible in nature, end up or actually kind of evolve into intangible things, such as expression of freedom or something that actually aids convenience. So the other products I think are pretty familiar. You're pretty familiar with. I'll not kind of get into that. Moving forward, coming to the problem solution equation. As I said earlier, the why has to be clear as to why are you building that product or that prototype. So the why here is the problem that you need to identify. Okay. Now, this problem is maybe something that you yourself are facing, maybe your friends are facing, your family is facing, maybe your educational institute or your company is facing for that matter. So you need to identify that problem. How do you validate that problem? You'll have to actually speak to as many people as possible. Try and gather as many interviews, as many insights from people. Just by talking to them, interacting with them for about 5 to 10 minutes, you'll understand whether that problem is actually genuine or not. And then the third thing that you actually have to identify when you're speaking to your customers is something called as the willingness to pay, or WTP. This is something that indicates whether that problem is there. Okay, fine. If it is there, is the customer actually willing to pay some amount or whatever that amount be, if in case you bring up a solution towards it? So these are the three things that you need to look at from a problem's perspective. And the second part of the equation is the solution equation, basically. Now, solution, maybe you can invent something, right? That is also a solution. Maybe you can invent a technology, maybe you can invent a product, or else you can remodel something that's already existing in the market, such as, there's already something that is patented. You can reinvent that wheel and try and innovate that product into your particular segment. Now, one thing I would like to make it clear is that please, you can go and invent the solution, but please do not invent the problem. Okay, so you can, maybe you are already starting off with building a prototype, but then if after you have built the prototype or the product, don't go and search for a problem that it can solve, because that is not how things work. I've seen a lot of people actually doing that, and then they fail very miserably to convince anyone, any stakeholder in the entire market. So that is something that you have to actually take it. That is, do not invent the problem, just invent the solution to the problem. This slide actually kind of gives a brief about where the prototyping stage actually lies in the entire product development cycle. So once you've identified the product, you start ideating the solution, you verify the concept of that solution, and then start designing. Look at the engineering aspect of it, right? You'll have to look at if in case, the problem or the solution that you're trying to build is not impossible to build. For example, perpetual machines. So you cannot build perpetual machines, right? So that's the reason you'll have to actually verify the concept of the idea that you're bringing in and then start building the prototype. So prototyping is actually, I think, a cyclic thing, right? You build one prototype and then you go back to engineering. You look at again whether we can improve it from a design perspective and remodel or rebuild it again in a phase-wise manner. And then when you're certain, you actually take it to pilot scaling, wherein you will have to look at other certifications as well, maybe ISO or some safety certifications. And then you go into full-scale production. So that's the entire product development cycle there. Prototyping is at the heart of the entire thing. Now, coming to the main topic of our discussion, that is physical prototypes. So what exactly is a physical prototype, you may ask? So a physical prototype is anything that demonstrates a solution. Now, it could be a simple handmade model. Maybe you can 3D print that model and showcase that this is how it is going to look. Or else it could be a fully functional model as well, wherein it actually demonstrates the solution or actually demonstrates the solving potential of the problem of that particular segment, basically. So, as I said, in the physical prototypes are generally classified into two. One is aesthetic or visual prototypes, and the other is a functional prototype. Again, aesthetic and visual, aesthetic could be maybe, as I said, 3D printing. You could have a physical model, a tangible object that you can showcase. Or else you could also have a visual prototype. That is maybe you can actually kind of model it in your software itself, right? So that itself also could be a prototype. Now, another concept which I'd like to share is something called as the digital twin. So back when I was actually working with GE Healthcare, there was this concept of digital twin in prototyping. So basically what GE brought out is that why only build physical prototypes? Can we actually reduce the cost and time of building a physical prototype and try and build that entire thing in a digital framework, basically? So you can also look at that aspect if in case your prototype is very technologically advanced or has a lot of things that are very technologically innovative and expensive. You can also look at the aspect of digital twinning. So that is something that is applicable to a physical prototype, but in a digital realm. So yeah, I'll take a break now. I think interval 1 is here, and then maybe Hiteshi can put across the quiz
Yes.
questions.
Yes, we can take a break of 2 minutes. So I'll quickly circulate it to the students. So meanwhile, guys, you can click on the quiz links and you can answer the first set of quiz. So the quiz link is available in the chat and also in your WhatsApp group. So please take up this quiz.
So shall I resume, Hiteshi? Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. Now, going forward, yes. So now this is where we actually start building, or this is the first step of starting to build a physical prototype, and that is modeling, right? It could be 3D modeling, or else it could be a 2D modeling as well. Now, historically, if you look at it, prototypes have been built from a 2D sketch to a 3D model. right? So that's the historical aspect of it. But in today's world, it is actually the opposite, isn't it? So if we start off with building a 3D model first, maybe on SolidWorks software, maybe it's a CATIA software, Autodesk. I think there are so many softwares available in the market today that you have the flexibility and the option to choose basically. And don't worry much about the compatibility aspect with respect to maybe transferring one design to the other software. You can do it from maybe transferring it through a .step or .step model, or else there's another, I think, .stl model as well, that you can transfer those designs that you have made on one particular okay, wait, on one particular um, software to other particular software basically. So the transferability is something that is very flexible, and don't worry much about it. So today what happens is that we start modeling with the 3D aspects, because it helps greatly to visualize the entire thing. In a 2D sketch, that is the bigger issue. That is, you're not able to visualize how it looks, how it actually kind of maybe functions, right? So you can do all that in a 3D CAD software, right? As I've mentioned here, there are three topmost softwares here, and then convert those 3D CAD models into a 2D sketch, because at the end of the day, you'll have to actually get it manufactured. Maybe you can do it yourself, or else if it's a little bit complex, you'll have to actually kind of speak with a couple of MSMEs or people who have these fabrication units, right? So they are very there. You'll have to understand their, I would say, mindset as well, because they work a lot on the 2D drawings itself, and you'll have to actually kind of get those standard drawings out from the 3D CAD model, which is also doable from any software you choose basically. Now, CAD modeling is again divided into three aspects. One, of course, is a mechanical CAD modeling, which includes a part file and an assembly file. See, I'm a SolidWorks person, so most of the terminologies that I will use here and going forward will be a lot of related to the SolidWorks software itself. And I think most of the education institutes as well prefer SolidWorks, because it has a very good user interface and very easily operatable. So yes, mechanical aspect is one. And the other two aspects, which are actually not focused much by mechanical designers, or for that matter, even the industry, is the electrical wiring. Okay. So please understand, electrical wiring is extremely critical for you to bring out a fantastic product in the market out. And it has to start off with doing it in the prototype. Electrical drawing, electrical wiring can be done on SolidWorks, on CATIA, on Autodesk. You can easily do it. You have a lot of options. You'll have to study the software once. And in addition to this, you'll have to also look at the electronic component aspect, because these today what happens is most of the electronic companies, maybe most of the retail companies, right, like Mauser, or for that matter, other retail companies that sell these electronic components, they actually give you the option of downloading the electronic hardware in 3D format for mechanical engineers to utilize it for their modeling aspects. So you can actually take the advantage of it to get those electronic items placed in your 3D model, which actually kind of benefits a lot. You can look at maybe the weight distribution entirely. You can try and balance it out. So there are different aspects to it. That is something that I urge you guys to look at when you are doing your 3D models. Now, coming to the process of how do we begin the physical prototyping after maybe you have the 3D and 2D CAD models. So from an industry point of view, I think industry actually looks at three very big things, or three very simple things for that matter. First is that they look at how do we build something that is very quick. Okay. Second thing, you'll have to look at, is it low cost or is it high cost? So try and get it to low cost as much as possible, especially for the prototyping stage. I'm only talking about the prototyping stage. And third, of course, is that you will have to be as frugal as possible. What I mean by frugal is you'll have to be as simple as possible. Do not add components unnecessarily if it is not required. Okay. So these are the three, I think, aspects, or you can say thumb rules that the industry utilizes for physical prototyping. Now, how do we actually kind of, uh, I would say, fulfill all these three thumb rules? First thing is you'll have to take in as many standard parts and components in your 3D design, in your physical prototypes as much as possible. You can actually now you might ask the question, how do I know what is a standard part and how it is what is not a standard part? So the best thing that you can do is visit as many hardware stores as possible. If you're in Bangalore, you can visit the SP Road, right? It is known for all types of electronics and mechanical uh, systems, components, parts. You'll get everything there. You will even get a second hand, anything that you require second hand as well, basically. So visit as many physical stores as possible to understand what component is available as a standard part, right? What is the cost of it? The other alternative is you can do an extensive online research. So what we at Mupron do is that we rely on companies like Misumi.in, RoboKits India, Mojlex, Robo.in, and these companies actually give you a fantastic they have listed out all the components that they supply, and you can actually look at not only how it looks, how the dimensions are, you can also look at the technical aspects of it, right? Maybe if in case it's a motor, what is the torque of the motor, what is the input voltage of that motor, right? How big is the motor, what is the frame size of the motor? So all the data is generally available on all these four websites, which I personally utilize for my own prototyping needs. Now, the other aspect of it is to reduce as much customized design as possible. So don't try, okay, it is good to have, or it is good to have that creative side to customize a new design, try and bring in something that is not available, right? But you will also have to look at what are the pain points that you as an individual will face to actually get it to a physical thing. Because when you customize a lot of things, manufacturing becomes a little bit of an issue, right? So you'll have to understand how do I manufacture something that is easy to manufacture. One, this is from a prototyping perspective. I'm not talking about a product. This is from prototyping perspective again. Reduce the customized design as much as possible. Even if you're going for a customized design, make sure you can 3D print that design so that you'll be able to visualize it tangibly. And make sure to understand the manufacturing processes, because most of the problems, especially in India, the bottlenecks are with respect to manufacturing processes. And this is something that even we at Mupron Technologies are solving, right? Which I'll explain in the case study as well. So understand the manufacturing process. What are the bottlenecks? Where can you get things done? Maybe if you look at Bangalore, Pune is the best example, where you can actually go to any person there and they'll tell you where this thing can be done, right? That can be done at a low cost and at a faster pace. So that is also very important when you're doing your prototype. Coming to design thinking, I think this is again, just like I started from the why perspective. This is actually that standardized process uh, with respect to design thinking, right? So you begin with empathizing what exactly you need to do. How do you actually empathize? You speak with people, try and understand what their problems are, try and look at where you can provide a solution, right? Then empathize, then you define the problem, then you ideate the solutions, then go for prototyping, test that prototype, and then implement that solution in a real world market. So again, this is, I think, summarizes the entire top 4 or 5 slides that I presented here. All right, this I think is the last section in before interval 2, and this is the testing of the prototypes. Of course, testing can be done on a lot of aspects. Maybe it can be mechanical testing, electronic testing, environmental testing, right? So you'll have to look at, if in case it's an environmental testing, maybe you can look at whether that product of yours is generating anything that is hazardous to the nature. That is also one aspect of testing. You can operate it in a very sunny environment for the next 10-15 days and look what actually how actually it has bed the sun and the entire exposure to it, maybe humidity, rain, whatever. You can try it out in various environment. Now the hardware testing is more from a soft point of view, if I have to put it. It is just to understand what is the bill of materials that you have incurred so far for the physical prototype. So if in case, you're building, let's say maybe you're building a CNC machine, right? So in a CNC machine, what will be the bill of materials? There's going to be a linear guideway, there's going to be a ball screw, there's going to be a motor, right? So the number of those components you'll have to actually list out in an Excel sheet, make sure that you have that list, and look at the just map the cost along with it as well, so that you can actually kind of you can actually analyze where you can reduce the cost from maybe prototyping as well as maybe from a product building point of view. Then electronics is, of course, EMC testing, PCB integration, sensors. You can check whether the sensor works at one particular temperature or no, right? And mechanical testing, of course, includes stress analysis, assemblies, just check whether the fasteners are tightly fit as well or not for that matter. Then you can check the dimensional accuracy, packaging, drop testing. So there are multiple aspects that you can do. I think most of the people uh, in first year of engineering will learn a lot of mechanical testing labs, right, from the laboratory. So you can actually apply a lot of those for your prototypes as well. All right, so we'll just break for another 2 minutes, and then maybe Hitesh can give the quiz links.
Sure. So I'm posting the second quiz, guys. So in the chat section. So please answer this quiz. Meanwhile, we'll resume at 12:30 sharp with the case study.
All right, so I'll just move ahead then to the next slide. All right, now begins the case study. So this is with respect to my company, that is Micron Technologies Private Limited. Just before I actually begin with the case study, I'll just explain to you what exactly Micron is and what we are trying to do. So Micron Technologies Private Limited, we are an early stage startup based in Belgavi, Karnataka. And we are a manufacturing innovation company. So what we are doing is we are helping semiconductor and biomedical companies who are developing these MEMS and microfluidic devices to accelerate the product development cycle and market entry using our innovative manufacturing solution. Now, you might be wondering what exactly is this MEMS and microfluidics, which sounds too technical or too, it's actually kind of a bouncer being put across to a lot of people. I'll just little bit take a moment and explain what MEMS and microfluidics is. So MEMS, I think most people are still able to relate. It stands for micro electromechanical systems, and MEMS devices are predominantly used for actually sensing, application of sensing and collecting data. And microfluidics is nothing but it is very similar to a silicon chip. It's just that you're not utilizing a silicon chip. It's more from a fluidics point of view, more from a mechanical standpoint. So in microfluidic devices, what happens is it has a particular channel or it has a particular pattern that is manufactured or fabricated onto a particular material. It could be glass, it could be silicon, it could be ceramics, it could be polymers, it could be any material that you choose, right? And within this pattern, you actually flow a particular fluid. Now, this fluid, it could be maybe blood, it could be serum, pharmaceutical drugs, cell cultures, right? It could be any fluid of your choice. And these patterns onto the microfluidic chip are in the micro features, basically. It could be anything above 10 microns to below 100 microns is the feature size of the microfluidic patterns, basically. And when you flow this fluid into this pattern, there's some form of analysis that is done. So what we are doing is we are helping our customers actually accelerate the product development cycle of these MEMS and microfluidic devices. Now, how are we doing it, or how did we actually kind of begin our entire journey right from the problem and solution statement? So this slide actually kind of gives you what problem Mucron is solving and how did we actually come about that problem. So, what we started doing is, okay, I'll just give you a little bit of a story here. I was previous to working with Mucron, we were working as the CEO of this company. I was working at another startup named Andromeda. And here I had the opportunity to actually interact with a lot of biomedical founders who are developing these microfluidic devices. Now, interestingly, what has happened is I think about 8 or 9 people I interacted, founders I interacted, about 4 or 5 of them have actually shut down their shop. The reason for that was that there were a lot of problems when it comes to developing these or fabricating these microfluidic chips, which in India is not done. It is not done anywhere in India. So what we started doing after that is that we started interacting with a lot of microfluidic experts, not only situated in India. Some people we interacted with were situated in the United States. Someone was from Iran, Singapore, Europe. So we tried to collect as much perspective, as much data about the problems around the world in this microfluidic field through maybe link. We actually started off with LinkedIn, sending LinkedIn requests to all the people. And then when we actually came in contact with IISc Bangalore, we got this boost that they actually helped us network with a lot of people. So, the best example or the best aspect of interacting with a lot of people is that people who genuinely want to help you, they will go to any lengths to help you, maybe from a networking point of view or maybe from development point of view as well. So that is the advantage of it. So we interacted with more than 60 microfluidic experts who are currently situated across the globe. And we understood that there are these 3 pain points that are being highlighted across all the interactions that we did. So that is with respect to time, with respect to cost, and with respect to inconvenience. So what we actually did was, after we found out this, we went back to our college, my professor actually, Professor Jinka, and then I interacted with him. I told him this is what I found out. And we believe that that he's actually doing his PhD in one particular technology. And I told him that this, whatever PhD that you are doing, I think that technology can solve a lot of these problems from a prototyping perspective for microfluidic devices. And that is how we actually, we came up with the solution as well. So we understood what are the existing technologies that are currently used in the market, in the institutes, by companies, by individuals. The most predominant are injection molding, laser technology, lithography, and chemical etching. So these are the most prominently used for microfluidics and MEMS devices. And we said, okay, most of these are used for uh, batch manufacturing or mass manufacturing segment, but there is a vacancy. There is this, I would say, vacuum that exists that is not being filled by any of these technologies for the prototyping aspect of these devices. And that is how we actually came up with an advanced hybrid manufacturing technology that we set up kind of a collaboration with my professor based out of RV College itself. And we actually brought out that technology from the laboratory to the market today. So this is the first stage of our prototyping actually. So you can look at, we did actually, these are all my professor's designs. He actually started off building the CAD model at his lab in the college, that is RV. And he tried to actually kind of do a lot of, I would say, simulations, right? So simulations is an extremely critical part when you're building something new, a technology that has not been tested. So simulations are your friend. You'll have to understand how to do simulations. YouTube, I think, is the best resource that you can ever have for simulations, because most of the solutions are already existing, and people have actually gone to a lot of length to understand how to solve the problems in simulation. So you can actually rely on a lot of YouTube content for doing simulations. And the images on the right are few of the these are all DIY, that is do it yourself components. It's an Arduino Mega. There are these stepper motor drivers on the top and the bottom, and then the others are more like a resistor, a these are all something that are available readily on SP Road. You can go and purchase this for 100 rupees, maybe 500 rupees at max, single component. So that's how we actually kind of started off building this. And this is the first proof of principle setup, basically. So proof of principle setup is nothing but it actually demonstrates that the principle that we are trying to actually come up with, it proves that principle with respect to the problem that we're targeting, right? So this is the proof of principle setup that we built back at RV College. And it was, you can see it's a lot of messed up thing, right? Because we did not do the wiring CAD models. We did not do a lot of things which we actually later on realized that this is something that we had to do. It would have actually reduced a lot of effort when it came to actually building this entire thing. So that these are all the lessons, hard-earned lessons. We have burnt a lot of fingers, and we are just trying to share those lessons so that you can actually learn from it and try and not repeat those errors and mistakes that we have made actually. So you can see it's a pretty bulky, messed up situation here, the proof of principle setup. And then post this back in March, I think back in June of 2021, we actually moved from a proof of principle setup to building our first proof of concept setup. Now, I'm quite certain that you might be having a question what this proof of principle is, what is proof of concept is, what a prototype is. Just to give you a very brief understanding of it, a prototype is the final stage of prototyping, basically. So the first stage of prototyping is always proof of principle. The second stage is proof of concept. And the third stage is a prototype, a fully functional prototype, basically. So these are the three stages of prototyping, which are very necessary that you follow the process, because for a high-end technology like what Mupron is building, it becomes extremely critical for you to showcase capability at each and every given stage. This is not only from a customer's point of view, this is also from a investor's perspective, actually. So these are the, if you follow the process, I think most of the things are clear. Most of the things get cleared as and when you actually develop. So in the proof of concept stage, again, before we actually build the 3D CAD model or even went for physical prototyping, we did the simulation with respect to the tool, actually. So this simulation, the image on the left here, it showcases that how the fluid is moving around inside that chemical chamber of ours, basically. So we utilize a electrochemical setup, and this image here actually simulates that particular point or that particular area of our electrochemical setup. And then, these are just another few models that we actually built. These are all sketches, if not models. These are all sketches that we built for one particular problem with that we were facing when it came to, when it came to actually giving a charge to the electrochemical cell. So those are some issues that we faced, and we actually came up with 2D designs or 2D sketches to actually look at what can be done, what cannot be done. So yeah, this is, you can make a comparison, right? So this is such a big equipment, such a whole thing. We actually we were able to reduce this to this proof of concept setup. Here, actually, we built this entire thing using plywood, actually. The plywood that was lying at my home, we cut it using normal manufacturing processes, right? Maybe a grinding wheel or something that we can utilize. And then we utilized the non-functional redundant CD-ROMs, actually, CD-ROM drives, to make the three-axis motion here. So this is kind of a three-axis CNC setup. And we utilize the CD-ROMs to make the axes, the X and Y drives, actually. Then we powered it using an AC DC supply, which I think is called an SMPS as well in an industrial term. And you can use spare parts that are available in a CPU, maybe that is not being utilized, that has maybe lost its functionality or not working or something that way. And you can maybe utilize a fan as well, because we ended up utilizing a exhaust fan to remove all the harmful chemicals from the point of concern, basically the point of where the machining is happening. So this is how we actually built a proof of concept setup. And from the proof of concept setup, since I think January or maybe February of 2022, we actually started building a prototype. So this is the last stage of prototyping that we did. Now you can see that here we actually went ahead designing a lot of things, right? Because we were confident that whatever we had done previously, it actually demonstrates a lot of things. It puts a lot of confidence within yourself as well, right? So we actually started building a lot of things, custom designed it, and a lot of things that we felt that there is no custom design required at all, right? Maybe for example, the image on the right end here, it's a simple chuck, right? So most of mechanical engineers will understand that what a chuck is. A chuck is nothing but it holds your tool or your workpiece. In some cases, maybe the lathe, it holds your workpiece as well. So this chuck was readily available in the market. It's a high precision chuck. And we said we cannot afford to spend a lot of time designing a chuck. Let's actually procure it straight away, right? So those are the things that you'll have to look at, maybe where you require, where you think that you cannot compromise on the quality aspect. Maybe it is best that you actually go for a standard precision product that is available in the market, which will help you reduce a lot of effort, time, and more importantly, a lot of cost as well. So as I said, we first built the 3D model, and previously also I explained that building the 3D model comes first today than building the 2D sketches out of it. So we built the 3D model, then we actually produced the sketch of the 2D the 2D sketch from the 3D model to actually get into the fabrication stage. You can look at the various components that we have actually kind of designed and gotten it into a 2D aspect, basically. Here is where we applied a lot of, I would say, a lot of effort was put in to wire, to look at the electrical wiring aspect of 3D modeling and 2D modeling. So we made sure that all the wires that we were going to use, those are mapped out in a 2D sketch so that we understand what wire is going from where and to where, basically. And that is from an electrical standpoint. The image on the left actually kind of highlights that. And on the right, we also did a lot of 2D sketching. This is all mechanically done. Okay, there's nothing related to electronics much. Of course, electronic components are utilized, but a lot of things that have to be done from a drawing perspective are done from a mechanical engineer himself. So we actually did a lot of electrical wiring for electronic components as well, maybe like a PCB, right? So this actually illustrates the PCB that we custom built for our own application, and we made sure that we have the designs ready if in case we have to do maybe a debugging or something that way. If something goes wrong, we understand that okay, these are the things that we change, and we quickly kind of do that as well. We are able to do that as well. Of course, these are few of the readily available things that we still stuck to, because we believe that customization adds a lot to the cost aspect and adds a lot to the time aspect as well. That's the reason it is always best to actually rely and go back to standard products. And these are few of the products that we utilized. This is a frequency generator. We have a DC supply, source DC supply. Then we also utilized edge bridges. We utilized SMPS and others actually. So these are again more on the electronic aspect of it. And this is the final picture on the prototype actually. So this is where we lie today. Of course, there are a lot of messed up systems again, because messed up wiring again. I can actually kind of say that, because that is something that we tried to avoid a lot. But since this was our first experience of doing the wiring, there was a lot of things that we did not take into account. And those are learnings again, isn't it? So this is how you actually kind of build things step by step. So the moment you take one step, the next time you try and do it, you'll be much more better at it. So that is my own personal, I would say, perspective of it. And here you can see we built this 3D, sorry, forgive me, 3-axis CNC system using a DC spindle, hybrid servo motors, microprocessor, controller, right? So they're all fancy stuff. Again, they do nothing more than what you actually ask them to do. So you'll have to actually program it or maybe use a software to control it. So this is where the prototype lies right now. We are utilizing this prototype to actually do a lot of production, frankly speaking. We are already working with 4 of our customers. So we have already validated the prototype because this prototype is already giving out, you know, I think we're working with IISc on pressure sensor. So we are already doing the pressure sensor MEMS for IISc Bangalore. And there's one other company called as Jiva Science, where we are doing microfluidic chips for them. So this prototype is able to actually deliver at a scale and quality that both these companies and institutes actually require. So that's the best aspect. That's the best thing about sticking to a process, because when you stick to a process, your result is much more better than going haywire about it. So I think this is the last slide from my end. This is where our current minimal viable product lies. So a minimal viable product is like a pilot product, right? It is just before you enter the market. This is another thing that we are building, so that we are able to actually put this machine or put this equipment into our customer's environment and run it there. So that is where a lot of things again come up, isn't it? A lot of you'll understand that, okay, this is something that is not required, okay, this is something that is required. So you'll have to do a lot of changes, and that is the reason it's always recommended that you do a lot of pilot testing at your customer's base or at your the facility of the customer. That gives you a lot of perspective actually. So yeah, that's it from my end, I think. Thank you very much. And Hiteshi, if there are any questions, I'm actually open to interact.
Yes. So guys, the platform is open for Q&A. So please post your questions here in the chat box. Meanwhile, thank you, Neeraj, for so beautifully explaining your entire process and how you follow the design thinking steps to actually build your own product. So a couple of pointers to highlight is one is do not reinvent the problem, but focus on inventing the solution. And the beautifully you shared the thumb rule while prototyping, that is keep it do it quick, keep it low cost and frugal. But when you're keeping it low cost, make sure that you understand your capabilities and not compromise on the quality. So
Yes.
these are the couple of beautiful points that you put across. So as we keep start getting questions, my very first question to you will be like, we understand that you mentioned that you have to keep it short and keep it low cost. But when do you know, when do we start understanding that the prototype that you're building is actually failing and not meeting the purpose that we started off with? So, and when do I know that it is failing, and what can I do at that stage? How can I get back?
Okay, okay. Fantastic question, I think. But it has a kind of a non-climax answer to it, if I have to put it that way. See, the entire point of prototyping is to actually fail, frankly speaking. Because if you don't fail, you'll not understand what went wrong with the product, or what could go wrong with your end product actually. So it's always best that there's a lot of learnings that you can take when your prototypes fail. And a prototype can fail at any time. Maybe when you're actually building it itself, you'll understand, okay, this is something I think I made a mistake, right? Maybe we'll have to actually correct this. So when you're starting with the process itself, you'll understand there will be a lot of inputs that you will get. Try and work in a team, right? Because the more number of views you get, the more number of perspectives you get, the better your product might end up be, right? That is one another thing that I've actually learned. And again, prototypes are meant to fail, right? Because you have to take the learning out of that failure and start building the next.
Yes. Great. So we have a question from the audience. So the very first question is, as you stressed upon the point about not inventing the problem and rather invent the solution, could you explain that with an example?
Okay. Okay, cool. So What example should I take? Mm, Okay, so I'm not sure if the audience knows a company called as, I think it was Theranos, which was based out of the United States, right? So this company again is or actually used to work in the segment that we are working today, that is microfluidics. What this company started claiming actually is that since they had actually built a very good setup, right? Uh, it was a PhD candidate who graduated from one of the universities, and that person actually built or had this idea of doing microfluidics, because she had done a PhD in microfluidics, of taking that microfluidics to solve one particular problem actually. Now, the issue with that was she had already put in 5 years of her life, 5 years of her entire time to develop something or a solution, right? Without identifying the problem here. And the problem that she actually was trying to invent, the problem here is that the device that she had built can solve all the, forgive me, can actually diagnose all the diseases. It was like a one-stop solution for a laboratory. A small, I would say a machine, just like you have seen my machine right here. So a small sized machine of this size is a replacement for a laboratory, is what her claim was. And actually, people put billions and billions of dollars. I think this is one of the well-recognized fraudulent frauds, if I have to put it that way. It's a very harsh term, forgive me on that, but it's one of the most well-recognized frauds in the startup industry, especially in the biomedical segment. And this is actually based out of the United States. So that person actually, she tried to invent the problem out of the solution, and that is the reason it failed big time.
Okay. Okay. So moving on to the next question. You also spoke about, while explaining about your case studies, you also spoke about principle of concept, proof of principle, proof of concept, and prototyping. Could you re-emphasize on it a little bit? You re-talk on that concept once again.
Sure, definitely. So see, you have to understand prototyping again as a process. As I explained in the product development stage, the prototyping, which I explained in a circular box here, let me go back once again. Here, if you look at this prototype box, right? So even though this product development cycle is a process, these individual boxes are also processes actually. So you cannot look at prototype as a single thing or a single task. It involves multiple things within it. So how do you start off building a prototype? You start off with a proof of principle setup. So what is a principle? Maybe a science principle like electrolysis, right? So how do I know, before electrolysis was actually discovered, how do I know that electrolysis is going to happen? What is the proof of that principle happening? Isn't it? So that is how you'll understand, if in case you're building something very core technical, maybe just like you're building a deep tech product, you have to understand whether that principle is already proven or not. Don't try and actually build something that the principle is not uh, available. For example, you cannot build an engine if you don't know the principles of auto cycle, isn't it? So you understand the principle of it. In my case, I had to build a proof of principle. The reason being, the principle was not established previously. Okay. Then after, from that principle, we move to a proof of concept setup. Here, what happens is you take that principle and you try and solve one particular aspect of your problem. So for example, in my case, we solved the problem of inconvenience, right? Using our proof of concept setup. That was the only problem we solved for the concept setup. So your proof of concept actually validates not only the solution, it also validates your problem. And the third again is your prototyping or prototype, forgive me. The last process of the prototyping is your final prototype. Now, this is a fully functional prototype in my case, which solves all the three problems which I have mentioned earlier. So it actually demonstrates that the solution that we have built is fantastic. It whatever problems we have identified, it solves those problems.
Yes, thank you, Neeraj, for that. So you also mentioned about when we are maybe validating our problem or even in the testing stage, we need to go back to the stakeholders and get it verified. But while building the prototype, how important it is for us to actually involve the stakeholders, and to what extent do we have to take the inputs, and to what extent we'll have to keep it like park maybe.
Okay, fantastic question. I think that is a very valid question, because that is something that we as a company also faced. So here, the best thing that a product from a physical product point of view, the best thing that anyone can get to validate is to have a code development with your customer. Maybe, for example, just to take a hypothetical example, you're solving something in the healthcare business, okay, which maybe a GE healthcare is already there. You know GE, right? General Electric, which is one of the largest mechanical oriented company in the entire world. And GE already has a presence in healthcare, and they are not able to, they have not identified that problem as such, but you have identified, and you already have identified a solution as well. So what you could do is you could have a code development with GE Healthcare, right? Wherein you utilize their resources to get something of yours done. It's as simple as that. There's going to be a trade-off with it. There is no doubt about it. Okay. There is going to be maybe a trade-off with respect to IP, but you will have to get it cleared before you start a code development with them. So that is one aspect of it, or one option that you can pursue. Second option is you can try and contact all these incubators that are there across the country. There are a lot of incubators. I think if my recently I read, there were about 800 incubators, technology business incubators, that incubate not only businesses, not only startups, they also incubate ideas. So you can actually, because they have a very good facility for prototyping, they have very good facility for actually doing all these hardware stuff. You can actually latch on to them, utilize their facilities to get your product or prototype developed. So those are the two options. The best, of course, is to actually do a code development with your customer, because it actually validates a lot of problem firsthand, because they are directly working with a customer, isn't it? So it validates a lot of things. It removes a lot of barriers, right? It actually accelerates not only a prototype development, it actually accelerates a product development as well. So that again comes with certain issues. That is something that you'll have to handle. It's a case by case thing, basically.
Yes. I have a lot of questions, but I'll just pick one last question, post which maybe I can collate all these remaining questions and send it to you. And we can discuss the answer, and then I can broadcast it over all to all the students. So my last question to you is, how do I know that I have reached the minimum viable product stage?
Okay, fantastic. So see, when it comes to prototype, I'll just kind of deviate for a minute. When it comes to prototype, the prototype has to only do one thing, that is, it has to function in such a way that it is only solving the problem. It has got nothing to do with design aspect. It has got nothing to do with aesthetics. Okay. It has got nothing to do with, maybe if in case you have a software interface with your hardware, it has got nothing to do with the user interface as well. But when you actually start building your actual product, you have to take into account all of these, because these aspects, even though from a technical or technology point of view, it doesn't make sense. But when you're actually selling a product in the market, the first thing that a customer looks at is how it is looking. How is the product design of it? Aesthetics matter. This is the truth. Okay. This is something that it was hard to digest for me as well, but that's a pill that I've digested now, right? So you'll have to actually look at product design from a MVP point of view. You'll have to come up with a better design, have a better software user interface if in case you have that in your distinct product. And more importantly, it has to be a very convenient for customers to utilize. If in case you have built something, for example, if in case someone has built an aircraft engine, but that aircraft engine is not being able to mount on the aircraft, then what is the whole point of aircraft engine, isn't it? So you'll have to actually kind of make it convenient to use, okay, for the customer, make it convenient to be fixed as an auxiliary equipment for something bigger. Those are the things that come up maybe at a later stage, right? Because as and when you speak to a lot of people, speak to a customer, you get a lot of insights as to what they are prioritizing, right? So that again depends again case to case basis. It might vary, but this is on a general relative term.
So that's when we can ensure that if the product has almost reached the minimum viable product stage.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, Neeraj, thank you so much. I still have a lot of questions. Maybe after this webinar, I'll just send it to you personally, and then I can get it answered and send it to all the students. So with that, thank you so much, Neeraj, for so patiently, engaging this session with our students and and also answering these questions to us. Thank you, Neeraj. And meanwhile, I also thank all the audience for uh, attending this session and being such a sport by asking so many questions. I believe these questions are a symbol that you're quite curious about the subject and you want to know more.
Yeah,
So
just before you actually finish off or conclude, I'll just take one more question which I happened to actually browse, and there's one person I think asked why did you choose a biomedical domain to
biomedical.
solve? Yeah. So again, I told you the story, right? I had the opportunity to interact with a lot of biomedical company founders. It was not only biomedical companies, actually. I've interacted with a lot of founders, and I found out that this segment has a lot of potential in India, and a lot of spotlight is already existing from be that from a government point of view, be that from an investor point of view as well. And I found out that there is a genuine pain point that I as a mechanical engineer can solve for the biomedical field, and that was the motivating point with respect to the biomedical domain. I hope I've answered this question.
Yes, yes, you have definitely. So yes, Neeraj, thank you so much. And also to all the audience, there is a last set of quiz that will be sent to you. So please do answer that. And with that, we wind up for today. Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you, everyone, for the great session.
Thank you, and have a good day ahead. All the best to Comedkares. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yes, thank you.